When you understand it that way, you go to a place like Dubai. I've been to Qatar. I've been to some of these places that depend on this water. It's lush. Oh my God, the shopping and the, I said called 20-star hotel because they are. They're just 5-star will not describe what we're talking about. And it's based on tears, and it's based on something that's not going to survive. And so we really need to ask these questions around protecting in the first place, which goes back to your question. If you're not prepared to protect in the first place, and then you're paying to have it cleaned up at some point, or people don't have it. Yes,
Hi.
please.
Hi, Maude Barlow. This is
Hi.
a little bit of a personal question. So this gets discouraging sometimes when you're fighting the good fight. And when you get down, when you get discouraged, where are you looking for inspiration, and how can all of us help you? How can we help each other? How can we be a community?
Well, that's probably the most important question there is. People ask me sometimes, how do you stay cheerful and hopeful in the face of all this stuff that you know? And I'm like some of you, I'm on all these listservs, and there isn't a moment goes by that I don't get some horrible news on some listserv, right, about yet another crisis of some kind or another. And I always say, well, I come here and I speak to you and I get you upset and I feel all better, which is actually true. I hope you're all, my husband says, you mean people deliberately, consciously come out and hear you and upset themselves? No, well, first of all, you have to take time for yourself. You have to find support around you. I believe in joy in activism. I believe in having fun. What's the old saying? I'm not going to the revolution if I can't dance. I believe in making a community of activists who love each other and care for each other and build a support system for each other and build in fun times and build in that kind of support, because it's I do a lot of traveling in the global south, and I've seen things that will never leave. Just, Kerala, not Kerala. I'm just forgetting the name of the slum in Kenya, which has, yes, thank you, which has almost 1 million people there, and they have what they call flying toilets. There's nowhere to go to the bathroom. There's some outhouses that are controlled by local thugs. You have to pay to use it, and it's terrible. So they defecate into plastic bags and they just throw it, and it's just everywhere you go, there's plastic bags of shit, everywhere. And it's just so hard, and you come home and you say, I'm so lucky, I've got a private bathroom I can go in. I've got clean water coming out of the sink, and I've got a shower and a bathtub. I mean, I'm so lucky, and I find myself being really grateful for having this, and I think that sense of gratitude is extraordinarily important. We've got to stop having the sense of entitlement. This is gratitude. 2.5 billion people in the world don't have a toilet. I was in a slum in India, in Calcutta, the old Bombay, Mumbai. And they said this bathroom here, this toilet here services 5,000 people. I mean, try to even imagine what that means. I don't know what that means. I can't even imagine it. So I guess part of it is being grateful, is being humbled. I think we need to be more humble. I think we need to love nature, and we need to put it in the center of our lives, and we need to be grateful for it. We have to be consciously grateful. And we have to find joy in the work that we're doing, and realize that it can be tough, but to my mind, it's like you open a door, you see what's on the other side. Some people choose to close it and not see. Like, I call it the right not to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. It's not my business. I find if you walk through it and you see it, it'll hurt. We talked earlier about a wonderful quote by Margaret Atwood, the wonderful Canadian writer. She says, "The world seen clearly is seen through tears. Why ask me then what is wrong with my eyes?" If you're really seeing it, you're going to be sad a lot. But that's a good sad. That's a sad that gets you out of bed in the morning and off doing something that you need to do to make it better. And I have enormous hope. I really do. I'm not just saying that. Everything that I've talked about here is absolutely recoverable. Nothing here is not recoverable if we start to take action now.
Let me just first start off by saying that you're a true inspiration. to students like me. I'm a junior at Loveland High School. It's a high school around here. We're very conscientious about our environmental stands. Right now, we're focusing on our watershed. We have a natural prairie. We do a lot of things like that. I'm just wondering how I can personally, in my life, reduce my footprint on water, and how my school itself can reduce its footprint as well.
Well, first of all, thank you. If you say I'm an inspiration, you're an inspiration for me. And it's really, really important that we have this intergenerational friendship, solidarity, because it's no particular generation is going to solve this alone. I expect you know as much as I do about what you can do at your school. My guess is that you guys are already doing tremendous things. You know, in your home and your school, the appliances that are water saving, the toilets and all of that stuff. I mean, we all know that. Cutting down on the length of the showers, the way we grow, what we have in our gardens and our lawns. I mean, all of this really matters. And this is a more water-rich area. It's not going to be as crucial here as in some dry places. But all of those things, what food we eat, cutting down the amount of meat is one thing we can do. Trying to support local food producers, local organic food is extremely important in terms of the water footprint. Helping find energy sources that don't hurt water, all of those things are incredibly important. But it's that sense of knowing that you have a role to play that's most important. I mean, you already are there. You guys are already there by being here. You already have made that kind of conscious decision, and I really, really appreciate it. I think I spoke a little earlier to some of the high school students, and I told them about a 95-year-old friend of mine who's been involved in every single fight, including the vote for women. I mean, that's her age, right? And she says, when any of us get tired, she says, oh, you just cut that out now. She says, well, becoming an activist is a lifelong commitment. You do it every day, and you can't, it's not a fashion you take off now and then. And when she gets really exercised, she'll say, oh, fighting for justice is like taking a bath. You do it every day or you stink. So it's, having made the decision, you guys, to be part of this, you're already part of the answer, and you're going to come up with answers that I haven't got. Like, each of us is going to give something back. New technologies, there's wonderful work being done on new technologies, for porous pavements, parking lots, for recovering dead water, unbelievable technologies, small technologies that are just marvelous. So finding a career where you can find a place to both make a living and make a difference is fabulous. Just being conscious the way you are, I think, is great. You inspire me back. Yes.
I work with the local Food and Water Watch and with many other groups along the Ohio River to keep the Corps of Engineers from approving shipping fracking waste down the Ohio River in barges. And despite all our efforts, they approved it.
I know.
So my question is, what, if anything, can we, the people, do to make them change their mind?
Well, it's very difficult when governments refuse to listen. I mean, I just stop and think about what we know about fracking, wastewater from fracking operations. I don't know if you guys know about Lac-Mégantic. It's a community in Quebec, a small community, and a train a year and a half ago carrying fracked oil and some fracking wastewater left the track and plowed into this small town late at night. It was close to midnight, into a local pub that was very popular, incinerated 47 people. And I mean incinerated. It blew up. This is what we know about fracked oil and wastewater. It is explosive. It is a very toxic. It's not just toxic in slow motion. It is explosive. And they are talking about moving it, storing it all around the Great Lakes, because they've fracked so much now, they don't know what to do with the fracking wastewater. And now, as I say, the Coast Guard has given the okay to move it on barges on our water. Ships have accidents. it's going to get into our water systems. Ships have accidents. It's a form of insanity to allow this to happen. How communities stop it? We have to make these decisions separately, you know, and how far we're willing to go. Sometimes we have to put our bodies up in a peaceful way on the line. I was involved in the 350.org, some of the protests in front of the White House a couple of years ago with Bill McGibbon. And Bill would say, okay, Maude, come and get arrested. And my husband, who's a lawyer, would say, no, you're not. He'd be holding my, I'm coming to get arrested. And he'd say, no, you're not. Because it's not a joke anymore to get arrested, because it goes on your record, and then you are suspected of all sorts of terrible things. And try explaining to a customs officer, you know, well, it was a protest. They don't care. So I promised Bill that I would get arrested in Canada at the first chance. So a year or so ago, we held a big protest on Parliament Hill against all of these pipelines, not just Keystone. And it was understood ahead of time that it's all like some morality play. You know exactly, well, if you do this, you'll get arrested. So we'd worked with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They're actually called that, the RCMP, and they wear the red serge and the big hats, and they do if any of you come to Canada, you'll see the RCMP musical ride in front of the Parliament Hill buildings. It's very wonderful. But they police Parliament, so that's who we were dealing with. So they put up barricades, and they said, if you cross the barricade, we'll arrest you. And there was a whole bunch of officers behind there getting ready to arrest everybody. So we had drumming, and we had music, and I had told my lawyer husband that nothing was going to happen. It was really boring, and there was no point in him coming because it was going to be really boring, because I had forgotten to tell him I was intending to get arrested, right? So sure enough, he shows up and says, what's that green armband you've got? And all the people planning to get arrested had. I said, what green armband would we be talking about, right? So it was an amazing day. We had First Nations drumming and music and speeches and so on, and then a group of us went to this stage, this fence, and I crossed the barricade. I was one of the first, and this very tall, big RCMP officer said, looked way down at me, he's a big guy, and he said, ma'am, I'd like you to step back over the barricade. And I said, oh, I really can't. And he said, no, I'd really like you to step back over the barricade. And I said, I really can't, officer, I'm sorry. He leaned down and he said, Miss Barlow, my wife is a huge fan of yours, and if I come home tonight and tell her I arrested you, I am in such trouble. I said, would you like a note? I mean, I said, you're going to have to arrest me. I'm really sorry. I'm very, pick somebody else. Like, I don't know what to do here. So he put the handcuffs on me, and he said, are they too tight? And I said, it's okay. I think they're supposed to hurt a little bit. But it's a choice that I'm not suggesting you go get arrested. I'm saying that there are times when we have to stand up and find ways to be there and to say, this old growth forest or this aquifer or this lake or this whatever isn't mine. It just doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to you guys who are about to destroy it. It belongs to future generations, belongs to other species, belongs to the ecosystem, and we just simply have to find stronger ways to express this. And think of all of the changes that have come, the women's movement, the civil rights movement, all of them have come through struggle. I mean, not one of them has just been won by benign sitting down and saying, would be nice to have equality. People fought hard for these changes, and I think we're going to have to fight hard for our water. I do.
You mentioned the buying by a corporation in Bolivia of a urban water system, a public water system. And I had been reading up until a year or two ago about more and more of an effort by multinational water corporations to do that in the United States, in Lexington and Indianapolis and other places. What's happened lately with the attempt to privatize public water systems?
Well, it's an ongoing struggle, and let me just say I have no problem with a corporation or an engineering company building pipes or laying infrastructure. I have no problem with that. We're talking here about private companies running the water service for a profit, and I'm totally opposed to that, as is Food and Water Watch. The idea is basically that the profit motive should not be involved in the delivery of water services because it's an essential public service, and it's a public trust, and it's a human right. So what we're saying to the private sector, help us with wonderful technologies that you can come up with. I mean, there's many, many roles for the private sector, but I believe that's not a good one. We have two big companies, Suez and Veolia from France, and they've got their American counterparts. They've got named American Water and so on, but the parent companies are these two, are the biggest in the world, are these two companies, Veolia and Suez, and we've been fighting them for years. A number of municipalities in both of our countries have tried water privatization and have decided it was a mistake. Atlanta, Georgia signed a 20-year contract, and after 2.5 years cut the contract and said, get out. The water was coming out brown out of the taps, it smelled, and they were charging a fortune for it. Every study that we have seen, every single study shows that privatized water is way more expensive than water run by a government agency because they have to build profit. They have to find 15 to 20% profit. Either they're going to cut corners, they're going to cut service, they're going to cut the workers, the number of workers, and they're going to raise the prices, and that's just right across the board. However, the fight is being won on this front. They call it remunicipalization, where municipalities bring the water back into public control, and there are something like 185 countries around the world that have, municipalities around the world that have now remunicipalized their water, including 40 cities in Paris, where these two companies come from, or in France, including Paris. 2 years ago, Paris took their water back out of the hands of these two French water companies and are running it, and within a year they were able to lower the water prices for the residential users. So it's an ongoing struggle and one that we continue to fight. But let me tell you, and I know we have to stop soon because where's Nancy? There you are, because I'm aware of our time. There is a trade agreement called TTIP, which is the United States European Union agreement. It's based on a model agreement between Canada and the European Union, which we've been fighting, which gives corporations from the other countries the right to sue your government if they don't like what you're doing. And so these companies, if TTIP is signed between Europe and the United States, any municipality in the United States that privatizes their water will have a very hard time changing their minds, because these companies can sue for compensation. It's called investor state. So anyone who wants to learn more about that, please go to Public Citizen Trade Campaign, which has tremendous information. So does Food and Water Watch on the implications of trade. And I have a whole bunch of stuff in my book on the implications of these trade agreements, on the right to go back to a public system once it's been privatized. So it's another ongoing struggle, and I don't have a crystal ball to see where it will come out, but common sense tells people that it's better to keep democratic control. I mean, water is life. Water is needed for life. We'd better keep democratic control of it at all times.
And we'll make this the last question.
Good evening. I'm wondering if you have any particular vision of how American policymakers, maybe how and when, they can really begin to tackle the problem of meat consumption in the United States.
Meat consumption, yeah. Is that what you asked?
Yes.
Meat, yeah. Well, as you know, meat is very water intensive. As well, the way we tend to produce meat in North America is more and more in these factory farms, these intensive livestock operations, that then in turn hurt the animals because it's terrible treatment, in turn destroy massive amounts of water. Again, I would send you to Food and Water Watch. Food and Water Watch has a wonderful project, a wonderful campaign on farming, people will choose or not choose to eat meat, and that's, those are personal decisions, but on how these farms are run and the destruction that they're doing both to animals and to local water. But again, the more we can learn about what we're eating and the impact on nature, I think the more we can think through beyond just, that looks good and that looks good, but where did it come from, and does those questions I was talking about. What is the impact on water? And when we start asking that question, I think we're going to have some different answers in our personal lives.
Okay, please join me in thanking Maude Barlow again for